got a catchphrase.
That's what it was.
Hi, welcome to the Music Lens Podcast with me, Alex Allegra.
And Katie Fee.
There's like a glare coming off the laptop there, but... Do you hear it?
Yeah, that was loud.
We have so much to talk to you guys about today. Like, so much has happened.
Much.
So, before we get started, I think we should just put this out there to try and restrain ourselves anyways to not just talk about Taylor Swift's new album that has come out.
2 hours.
Yes. So, we are going to do we're not going to tell everything. We're going to say that we have a day already in the books that we are going to do album reviews. So, you will get all of our hot take opinions, all of our likes, dislikes of new music, because there's been so much. Beyonce, obviously, Casey Musgraves, there's still a lot more to come out, and we think it would just be best because then we didn't feel like we missed talking about all those other ones, and then we can kind of control our love for Taylor a little bit more. So,
just a little bit.
I think that's the best way to go about it, and I floated that idea to Katie, and she was like, yes. So you guys are getting a review, plus then we don't have to sit here and talk theories of what everything means, because I think both of our brains are broken right now as far as theories go.
And by the time we get to that episode, maybe we'll have
we'll probably
answers to some of the things.
Answers too. Less
theories to
we will
question.
keep it to ourselves. Maybe if you follow us on our TikToks or stuff, we might post our own personal stuff. Yeah. So the only thing I will say, since we're on the topic of it, is that Katie and I both stayed up. We both listened together simultaneously from our own separate homes and beds.
Yes.
We Snapchat videoed reactions as they came. I was not about to record any of that for any of you guys because I felt embarrassed showing Katie how my bedhead presence was looking at the moment. And then we stayed up because she's like, there's a countdown. I'm like, fuck. And so we stayed up. I saw what the announcement was, and which my timer didn't work. It like nothing happened, and Katie was like, "You have to like."
No, I just went and looked at Spotify after the timer went off.
So
because I was like, maybe it's more songs, because I kind of thought it would be like kind of like Midnight's had the 2 a.m. edition.
We had both thought that was a really
edition,
good bet as to what it was going to be.
I'm like, I'll just go back to Spotify because the countdown didn't do anything. I'm like, well, let me check Spotify. I'm like, 15 more songs.
So then she stayed up, and I went to bed because I haven't slept in 2 weeks solidly. So still going strong on that streak now, aren't we? Yeah.
I think I had like 4 songs left when I went to bed. So I did not finish listening. But then there's Sam Ferrara, who our friends Sam, Christian, Tom, and Amanda all listened, and Sam Ferrara said that she had to be at work at like 5:30 in the morning and got home at like 4:30 or something like that.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So
I was just like, you know what? I have to work tomorrow, and I have
the problem with
all day tomorrow to listen to it, so I'm going to do it.
That's the problem with music coming out on Friday, since it's technically like Thursday night, is people have to get up in the morning and go to work. So then if it's like an album that you're going to listen to immediately upon release, then you don't go to bed as early.
Luckily already for us, we're on Central Time, so we at least get it at 11 instead of actually midnight. So like we do get a little bit of a break on that, but even then it was still 1 in the morning. So I was like, I'm tired.
I mean, by the time I discovered the countdown, there was like 20 minutes left. I'm like, that's not that bad. But then when you have a whole nother hour of music that gets released, then it's like, okay, now it's going to get pretty late.
I was like, I'll just read my book. I think I forget what I was reading at that time. I was probably reading Frost and Starlight. So.
Okay. Is that the 3.5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can take that too when you leave.
Cool.
Because I finished that, so. One day we'll do
Alex
book talk.
is my library.
Yeah, Katie and I exchanged books a lot. But it's mostly
You've taken a couple of mine, but
it's mostly because I have the ACOTAR series right now, and we're reading them together in a sense of like we were gonna read them at the same time, and then I finished the book and she still hadn't gotten them, so she was like, I was like, oh, here, you can just borrow mine. And then we just never caught up with each other. So I was like, I finished this one. And she was like, I still have the rest of this one. I was like, here you go. Here's the next one. So We'll talk about books another day though. Probably never about those.
We were supposed to do a World Book Day post and didn't.
Whoopsies.
Whoops. It's fine. I did, but we were going to post one for the podcast. And
I was very busy.
Didn't get around to it, but sometime do some sort of episode, I guess, of books of, there's some songwriting books that you have, I guess.
There's songwriting books that I want to talk about, and
I think there's some very, I think autobiographies and memoirs can be educational too.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's what I tend to read.
Those, I want to read a couple before we talk about those to maybe give some insight on those too. Yes. And then some of our friends have some books coming out here, so we'd like to do some book reviews for that as well. And so yes, books are a big part of songwriting and something I never thought until and I think that's really what got me into reading in general was connecting it with songwriting. And looking at a book as as much fun as it is, but just diving into a different kind of world and then realizing that's what songs do. And then it kind of clicked in my mind how much fun reading can be because I also keep a book of quotes. I find that's a really unique way of writing something. I'll write it down too so that then it gets my songwriter brain engaged as well. So that I'm the creativity and all of it. And so... which I always heard that reading fiction actually helps songwriting so much.
I think I might have pictures of quotes on my phone, but I just forget that they're there and I need to put them in a note with the rest of my songwriting ideas so I can actually remember to use them.
Well, that's why I put them in my notes app because then I was then
I did write one from a movie the other night though, so there's that. Yeah.
Especially because we've been now doing writing things off of TV shows and stuff too. So I was I should start writing down some of these. Although there was one in Akatar the other day that I should have written down, and I remember the gist of it, but the exact wording, I'm but I didn't want to get my phone when I was in the middle of reading it because I was here and I was just I don't feel like getting my phone. So but.
Yeah, we'll do a book one at some point.
But we also have a lot of headlines to cover as well, so that's why we figured we would do new music at a different time so that we can just let it be the whole thing and just gibber jabber all night long about it, and maybe we'll have some drinks with you guys. Maybe it'll even be something that we eventually open up to we could do a live chat with it too, get some your guys' opinions while we're giving ours. It might be kind of fun, so maybe we'll do something like that as a little bonus extra thing.
We could do that.
Maybe
we haven't done a live stream yet.
We'll see.
We could do a live stream on Instagram.
Yeah.
So that'd be the main spot, I think, for now until we get more followers on TikTok.
I was and eventually maybe it would become a Patreon thing. If we get to that level.
Yes, that's an idea. We went to an event last Wednesday.
We went to an event. Yeah. We went to a Change the Conversation event. So if you remember a couple weeks ago when we did our Women, Go Women, every time I think of our Women's History Month episode, I just think of me going,
Yay!
Women! So every time in my mind, that's what plays.
Yes.
So use it as a sound,
It's
do
fine.
all the things. Make that go viral.
It was part of Women's History Month, but it was in April. I think we talked about it in that episode that we're going to it.
Because we were going to talk about it when it happened. And then I was oh yeah, did we miss it? And then we were no. It was actually a lot of fun.
It was a conversation with Martina McBride.
It was very
Tracy Gershon interviewed her.
Tracy
Gershon
in
our at Warner. Did they say she currently is? Or just was at the time.
She does a lot of things.
She does a lot of things. It's not just A&R. She's a lot of places. But yeah, she was the moderator for the chat with Martina and talked about her whole career and how she kind of just did things her way and didn't really care what people thought, in the sense of no, I'm not gonna let these label people mold me into what they want me to be. I'm gonna do the music that I want to do.
Yeah, she gave me a really different and inspirational outlook on something that I'd been struggling a lot with lately, actually. And the biggest takeaway I took from it was something that she had first said, and she said that first of all, she was insanely brave and just said no, this is how I want to do it. And even Tracy was you had so much spunk and flair and spark to you, and it's just that was when people tell you oh gosh, I'm gonna think of how to phrase it in my mind, because it was like perfectly in my mind. I can picture exactly what I want to say to you guys, but like to make you understand it, because I think there's such a big difference, and something I've like really tried, and like with all the hard work that I put into it, and like I go such back and forth of like, how do I like fit the mold of like what the industry is and where I fit into my niche, and like how do I do this, and like but also like, and it kind of comes back to like the branding of like the elevator pitch of like, who are you, and like everyone telling you who are you, but why, and like if you don't have a strong enough opinion about who you are, and she said this too of like, if you don't have a strong enough opinion, someone else will tell you who you are. And like it was such a back and forth for me of like, I would feel like I did it and I would put all this hard work into it, and then feel like I just wasted it because it wasn't like what it was supposed to be and all this stuff. And gosh, oh god, it's still not like exactly where I want it to be of how she said it, but like she had said something and it like gave me such a perspective on like how to just like unapologetically be yourself in this industry, and like how to do it in a way that like just commands respect and commands like your hard work. Do you remember how she said it? That like it just hit me in such a way that I was like, I should have written it down when we like were there, because that's really why. Cause I was like, how do I phrase it? Because like, and it wasn't even like exactly what like I need to quote it word for word here. I'm just like trying to think of how it hit me in that way of like how to explain it to you guys, because it's like such like, we were talking about cyclical things in the industry of like getting yourself caught into this hole all the time, and it had just come in at like the perfect moment of like, oh, I get it now. And I see, like, how to just, what it means to, like, unapologetically be yourself and let the industry work for you. And instead of, like, you trying to work for that industry. And I think it goes a lot with, like...
I think she said that with the TikTok thing.
Yeah,
of like, make the trends work for you.
Yeah.
Don't just, like, follow the trends. Do it in a way that fits you.
Yeah, and making that creativity. Oh, because, you know, like, you think, like, everyone... And I was going to ask her this question, too, of, like, everyone's kind of has that, like... Well, how are you different? Like, how is your story actually different? And, like, I got so in my mind and wrapped up of, like, how is that different? But then again, of just, like, that's what it was. It was, like, how letting the industry work for you is, like, being unapologetically yourself. And, like, your story is unique. Like, you don't need to twist, like, the knife of, like, well, this part of my personality, like, you know, and, like, I think when we were talking about, like, because we kind of talked about stage names and stuff last week of, like, how I had to, like, step into, like, the role of Alex Allegra for me, and, like, that's how it was, because, like, it's your personality, and I think they talked about this, too, of, like, your personality just, like, turned up to an 11 of, like, who you are in the industry, and just, like, being, it was just very inspirational of how she like put it, that like in my mind now it like makes a lot of sense, and like why I think this podcasting works really well for us is because, and like why it finally feels like I don't care what anyone else says about it, like this feels, there's something about the energy that we're creating here and in my rights lately and everything else that like it does not matter. And she said that like how she processes through inspiration of like there is going to be times when you feel like you can't put anything more into it and that everything you do is just wrong, but like those times will pass. And I was just sitting there thinking like, wow, that was me last year, and like I got through it, and here I am on the other side of that, and I did push through it as much as it feels like I get in these ruts and like I still feel stuck. Like I feel like this is all really like that saying of like, and another thing at Belmont that we were taught was to grow with your friends. And I think you, me...
Like the tide rises.
And especially
together.
Like you, me, and Sammy, especially because we had asked her to do this podcast potentially too, or at least be a guest on it in some form or fashion, which we'll most likely still have her on.
Eventually we'll have guests.
But like it just feels like we really are starting to grow together, and it just feels like the right timing. And as much as I want to say like I was ready back then, you know, I think I had a lot of growing up to do still, and you know that doesn't mean that like this time is any less special because we're a little bit older or whatever. And I know I just rambled on for like 10 minutes, so sorry Katie, but
You're good.
It was just like I felt like that was such an important key aspect of like that whole thing of like, well, how do you be yourself, and how do you like like it just like it finally fit the way that she was saying things of like letting things work for you, and like that was also your way of just like
just believing in it, and like believing in the music that you're putting out, and
right,
not necessarily trying to write. Obviously, to a degree, you want hits, and I think she mentioned that too with just having an ear for it in the studio and stuff, but also just like if you really believe in a song, you're gonna put it out because you care for it. Like Independence Day was like that for her, where it's like it seemed kind of controversial to be putting out a song about domestic abuse, but she's like, I believe in this story and I think it needs to be shared.
Right. And that was something that like when I was trying to pick out singles and why it took so long for me to release any type of music was because everyone was like, this has to be something that in like 10 years you look back and say that you were still proud to release that. And so I've consciously made that, but I also put a lot of pressure on myself then when I did that. But then like thinking of it in the way of like, I am an artist and this is what I know I have to be doing, and like everyone had, because again I just got caught up in that like, well, how am I different and how do I do the elevator pitch and all that stuff about it, when I'm just like, just be proud of your story and keep that hard work and determination about yourself, and it will come around when it's supposed to come around. And like you know, so that just, it made me like, it just, there was just like that moment of like that unexpected little like click into place, and I was just like, yes, I get it now. Like I don't have to be fighting, like trying to just jam my head into the cog that is this machine of the music industry. And I said that dramatic on purpose, but you know what I mean. Like it's just that kind of thing. Like I just felt like I was always just beating my head against the wall. Like, no, I am me. No, I am me. And in more of like a teenage rebellion way, that like I had to prove that I was who I was instead of just being and believing who I was. I think, you know, as much it's the whole fake it till you make it thing, and I really had to kind of fake it till I made it for a while there in my own head of like, shut up, Katie.
My brain went to Taylor.
I really had to do that though, because I could do that all through high school and I could do it for most of college, but then like I just hit a point where my mental health was so declined that I couldn't do that, and then I had to figure out who I was all over again. And so now it's just like, now that I've kind of gathered who that is, and you know, I'm still 25, so that'll probably change again in 5 years, but at least I know for at this point that I am being authentic to where I am at in my purpose in life right now, and that's all I could ask for. And that, you know, all these rejections really are just like a rejection and not the rejection, right? Like, you know. So. Anyways, did you have anything more to add to it? I was really happy we ended up going, although I looked like
she
garbage,
brought her journals. She like journals, and she's like, please keep a journal, like, or telling people to write down their experiences as they're going through them, and like read from them.
Which my therapist says I need to do
her
anyways,
albums and stuff.
Don't do that, but I need to.
I do like a yearly reflection, so I journal literally like on New Year's Eve, and that's about it.
When I first started going into therapy, I had to physically write down a sentence a day just to like keep my mind steady and to progress. But then I got so comfortable in my progress that I've stopped doing that. But then I have all these big feelings and I'm like, I know I need to be writing it down, but I'm like in my car driving and I'm like you know, steaming, and I'm like, I don't want to write things
It's
down.
Also like I feel like journaling has to be like a handwritten thing, and my hand would hurt so much.
Journaling is a handwritten thing because of the way that your brain like connects. It is like an actual release because you are physically writing it down. Typing it out on your phone is not the same thing. Like, that's great for if you're actually trying to like remember things, but like even actually trying to remember things, like writing things down is actually how you're supposed to remember it more, because it's just like that extra step.
Psychology in high school, they're like handwriting actually is, there's a benefit to it of like your brain remembers things better when you do it that way. So you should be able to learn better if you are doing handwritten notes for classes, but also just processing things in general. We did the artist's revenue sources a few episodes ago, I think.
No, last episode.
No.
Oh, yes, you're right.
We did artist
inventory last week.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
And mentioned with that royalties and how we would do a royalties deep dive episode.
So guess what we're doing today?
If you, for some reason, didn't read the title of this episode.
No, it's still a guessing game. What is today's episode?
Game. Royalties deep dive. Yay! some of this stuff I feel like was talked about in that other one, so I don't know. I think some of this might be a little bit of a repeat, but not like the exact same information.
It's a review. It's a
just
refresher.
because, like,
a little course refresher.
I don't
you.
remember what we say sometimes, so like I don't expect everyone to remember all the information if you've listened to other episodes, or maybe this is the first one you're listening to, and so you don't know that
welcome.
one.
You
Hi,
have
welcome.
10 episodes to binge. Go ahead.
Woohoo!
I can't believe we have 10 episodes.
I know, this is number 11. What is this? Royalties deep dive is what we're doing. And I'm going to repeat our quick little copyright lesson because I think it's important to know the difference.
Where's my glasses? School is in session.
Between, because there's two different copyrights on music, the songwriting and the sound recording, which, okay. Songwriting is like the songwriters, and then publishers if there are publishers. So that's like the lyrics and the music. But then sound recording is like for the artists or labels. Sometimes producers get that copyright. Sound recording copyright is the recording of the sound. Duh. So that's like a work tape would, I guess, not be it, but like the I'm struggling. Hang on. We're gonna read the example, which I used in the other episode too, of Taylor wrote Better Man, and so she owns the songwriting copyright. Little Big Town recorded Better Man, and so then that's like a separate copyright from the Taylor copyright.
Yes.
So that's what it is. And so there's like different types of royalties generated in a variety of different ways for these two copyrights. And I'm just going to say like songwriter or artist from here on out, as far as like who gets what or what copyright it refers to, I guess.
So songwriting is
the composition.
Composition.
And the sound recording is like the produced version usually.
The Little Big Town of it.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And there are 8 different kinds of royalties. Some of them are very quick little blips, but there are 8 technically.
Okay.
Number 1, streaming royalties, which are paid to the artist through your music distributor. So DistroKid, TuneCore, CD Baby, whichever distributor you use to put your music up on the streaming platforms. And then there's also a small portion through your PRO, performing rights organization, that's paid to the songwriters. That's number 1. Super simple.
Should we go into what TuneCore, DistroKid, CD Baby? Those are your top 3 for distributors. Each one has a little bit of a different thing. I'm sure we'll deep dive into this when it comes to like
deep dive into
production and releasing your music and which one to choose. But like DistroKid, for example, doesn't take anything out of your songwriting royalties, but they like you pay per month or per year to have your stuff up on those platforms. We talk about music distribution and like what to do once you have your project, because like we've said, we want to try and meet. Did we talk about
case study
type things?
We could potentially do that. Yeah, I think we've briefly mentioned we want to do that at some point
with our music releases, because we want to walk you guys through the process. That's what we're here for.
Education. Yeah.
Connection for free. With education connection.
No. Okay, so yeah, number 1, streaming royalties. Number 2 is going to be a little more detailed, mechanical royalties. And so these are generated through physical and digital reproduction and distribution of your copyrighted songs. Yeah.
Oh, and I didn't think, but I'm sorry.
It applies to...
My mind didn't think of the right word there.
It applies to vinyl, CD, digital downloads, and streaming. And it found out it is called mechanicals because it used to be a mechanical process to reproduce music on vinyl or other physical formats. So that's why it's mechanical royalties. My hair feels like it's doing a thing. It's still doing it. It's still sticking out.
Someone decided to cut her own bangs.
Anyways, so in the digital age, it's generated every time your master is reproduced and copied when streaming, because when you're streaming, it is like a small copy of your song is reproduced to the user's device. I lost my space. So like every time you use the Spotify app, there's like a reproduction of the song. And so artists earn a mechanical royalty for the reproduction of the song file on the device. And it's paid by mechanical collection societies. And so for independent artists, it's going to pay the artist directly. And every country has its own mechanical collection society that pays these royalties. And also, this article, which I'll link, I don't know what it is right now, but I know I have an article I'll link. It was saying, like, it says artist, but it actually deals with the songwriting copyright. So I'm a little confused by that. I think it's songwriting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. So, not paid directly artists, paid directly songwriters.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Because we talked about in copyright class of, like, how, about how, like, that's why, like, as an artist, you want your song on the radio.
Right,
but, like,
that's
the actual,
right. But
like, songwriters get paid by the copies of CDs that, like, they used to get put out. So, like, it didn't matter if you had the number one song on
on
CD,
radio, it's like songwriters only get paid and artists don't get paid.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, but, like, you could still, as long as, like, you were on, like, a major record, like a Keith Urban record, like, you knew, like, it didn't matter if it was the song on the record, as long as, like, you were on his record, you knew you would make money because you'd get those royalties
from the CD.
off the CD. So,
but yeah, so for the US, the Mechanical Licensing Collective, the MLC, is, like, the one, but there's also the Harry Fox agency that, like, collected it before that. So there's still, like, other ones in the US, but the Music Modernization Act of 2018 is what created the MLC, and I think we still want to at some point get our friend Nick on here because he works there and he can, like, talk more in detail about what they do.
Yeah, because I think it's still kind of undervalued and underused as to, like, what exactly they are. Like, I still even don't completely know everything, so I'd love to get him on to talk about kind of what their purpose and what everything does. And I know the Music Modernization Act was such a big thing, but then it was, like, there was still a lot of questions when we were going through school because it had just happened while we were going through it. So we never kind of got those close-ended questions while we were going through it because it was still all, like,
it was still
we don't know yet.
We're
still figuring it out. So
yeah, but they collect the royalties due under licenses. I can't say that word today. Licenses from DSPs, digital service providers, which is streaming, and they pay the songwriters and the publishers. And there's, like, a musical works database that they have, and a portal for creators and music publishers to, like, submit their works on, and then get paid for the works. So
you're on there, right?
Yeah. So when you release music, then you go and register the songs. So that way you can get paid on there.
Similar to, like, your BMIs and PROs and that kind of stuff. You have to register that those songs are, like, to be looked out for, or else you don't get the money for them.
Right.
So it's very important, even I think as an artist, just to, like, have all that stuff set up ahead of time.
Because there's so many different, as we're putting through, there's so many royalty streams that you can get money from, and it's small still, but it adds up. So having all these different
if you just
things,
think that, like, you're well, I'm not really putting music out, but I write with all these people, and, like, I know a lot of, like, my friends that did that kind of stuff weren't using that kind of stuff, or, like, they were pushing it off, and it was still, like, but it's small, but, like, over time it adds up. It's like interest. Like, why wouldn't you just put yourself in it's like a savings account. Like, why wouldn't you just put it in to collect the interest on your stuff? And, like, then you're getting your exposure. Like, it all kind of adds up in little ways. Like, it's just, and especially if you get in with, like, your PROs and that kind of stuff, like, they will advocate for you as well, especially when you're trying to be an artist. And, like, BMI, I know specifically, and why I chose it was, like, they have a lot of, like, festival pool too, so then they have, like, their own little stages, and then you could potentially be pulled up for that kind of stuff. And
Key West Songwriters Festival was only BMI songwriters.
So it was, like, that was how when I was trying to pick one of my favorite artists was a BMI member, and he said that they really advocated for him and his music and, like, helped him out a lot early on in how to make some money. So that was a good reason to look into those kinds of things as well.
Is the next royalty.
I also think that it's interesting that you talked about that each country has it, because I don't know if people know that like music is a law of its own,
right?
And
yeah,
obviously then it doesn't
translate
to everything else. So like you could, and that's why and that's also why, and we'll talk about them because that's what you said is next, is the distributors, or not distributors, PROs are important to register your stuff in your country, because there's different ones in different countries then. So like you could have a number one song over in Ireland, and like, but you might not get the money off of it unless like you have like a way of like getting notified that that's a thing. So like your PROs and that kind of stuff here might be notified if it gets big enough attention that like then you'd need to go through like how to make sure that you're getting those payments and everything like that. So
yeah,
just things to keep in mind.
So songwriting performance royalties is next, and it's generated through the use of the song itself, so not the recording but the song, when it's performed, recorded, played, or streamed in public, so public performance of it. So that's music played in stores, coffee shops, AM, FM radio, TV, clubs, restaurants, bars, live concerts, streaming services, internet radio, literally anywhere in public that music plays. It should be getting these songwriting performance royalties.
Well, anywhere that, yes, but also anywhere that normally is like where you had to pay to get like the rights. Like if you go into like a restaurant and they have a little like BMI sticker in the door, it means that they paid to have BMI songs in the store being played and stuff like that.
Yep.
Because technically you could do an Instagram live, but if you tell BMI that you did an Instagram live, they won't count it as a performance. So it's not technically all public, because technically by definition of the copyright, public is, I could stand out in the middle of my street down here at the end of my block, and if there's people around, that's a public performance. But that's where the law becomes gray areas, because like technically then if you think about it that way, because I remember sitting in copyright class and I was like, technically you sitting out on the lawn at Belmont and you sing Wonderwall by Oasis, you should technically have to pay Oasis your performance, like the songwriters or whatever, the royalties for it because you sang it. But like realistically, is that gonna happen? No. And are they gonna sue you because you sang Wonderwall out in the courtyard at Belmont? No. So it's like picking your battles sometimes with this of like how like the money is like actually being used. And that's why if you go to a restaurant and stuff and they have music playing, they had to pay for that music though, because like there's certain there's a whole thing with it.
Which is what I have next is these places need a license, and the licensing fee is what is paying those royalties. And there's literally people whose job it is to call all these like small town bars that are having music playing in their establishments, and they have to educate them on why they have to have a license in order to have this music. And I'm sure there's plenty of them who don't know what BMI or ASCAP is, and like that's why they have to educate them. And I can imagine those people probably have people that they're calling and they're like, this is a scam, and not knowing what it is.
But then there are people that do just try and get around it and are just scammy like that.
Right. When you play live shows with original music, you can log it into BMI Live or whatever the ASCAP equivalent is, and they pay royalties quarterly.
We're both BMI members, so that's why we only really know what BMI does behind the scenes.
Yeah. And again, not much, but it does add up. And so, all this is collected by your performing rights organization, your PRO, and paid to the songwriter and publisher. In the U.S., there are 4 of them. So there's BMI that we keep talking about. I don't remember paying a fee to do it, but I looked it up, and now it's $75 to join as a songwriter.
No,
I'm pretty sure it used to be free.
Yeah.
And then $175 to affiliate an individual publisher. Because you can sign up songwriter and publisher. Yeah. So like those are different things. So they have different fees, I guess, for them.
Interesting. I remember like, because it was always like, I was told to just create your own independent publisher for yourself as well. Just make up some name. And again, it was free. You just like did it. But I never did my publishing. I just did it as myself because I already have a sole proprietor.
Yeah, which I mentioned on here too, was that we were told like register it because And I think you register with both BMI and ASCAP and do like slightly different names, but I don't remember exactly what the reasoning behind that is. But
I don't think
if
so,
you stay independent, I
you're
don't think it
supposed to
does
pick
anything.
one.
Well, as a songwriter, you pick one, but as a
yeah.
publisher, do like slightly different names, and do both.
Well, because they each pay, all of them pay different amounts. So CSAC pays artists the most, but CSAC, I'm sure you'll get into. Well, I'll let you explain. But like each of them pay different amounts because there's different reasons for that, because they each advocated for different things. So like BMI was Broadcast Media Corporation.
Broadcast Music Inc.
Where the fuck did I?
I don't know where corporation is. It's
Broadcast Music Inc.
BMI, not BMC.
I know. So BMI, and there was also like a different of genres. So like if you were more country and like kind of pop and more blues, and you did the ASCAP, and then because excuse me, because BMI and ASCAP were the two main ones. CSAC and the fourth one are newer ones.
Yeah.
So originally you just would like it was based on kind of genre and like what they would do for you. So ASCAP is
the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers.
So it was geared more towards like your songwriter based things and like your country music artists.
But
and
also
like it was,
I guess composers, so probably more classical.
Yeah,
music
and
too.
it would like do that kind of stuff. Whereas BMI was more based going after radio stations and went after, and it was for like your big pop artists and like EDM and rock, and like was more for advocating that broadcast media had like things about it, like in payments and that kind of stuff. So like they pay differently based off of what they were advocating for at the time. Now they all kind of pay the same amount, but like I said, I'll let Katie continue on about the different ones because there's a reason CSAC will also pay more. So
yeah, I guess just keeping down the list with ASCAP, it's open to everyone, free to join as a writer and publisher or just as a writer. But then if you're just joining as a publisher, it's $50. I don't know, it's weird. I don't know what the thought process is behind like what they want to do for these rates, but
they're all non-profits too. So.
BMI and ASCAP are both like
those two are
open to anyone with these fees, obviously, but then like CSAC is invite only.
Yes.
Also, it stands for Society of European Stage Authors and Composers, so I'm not exactly sure why it is an American bureau.
I don't know, actually.
Maybe it's also in Europe and then added a branch here. I didn't really look into the history. And then like the newest one is GMR, Global Music Rights, and that's also invite only, and it launched in 2013, so it's only like 11 years old.
I don't even think they brought that one up.
I think they briefly did, but because it's so new, it's like this is a thing, but you don't really have to worry about it because it's a baby company.
But CSAC will pay more because it's an invite thing, so like they have like very established songwriters that are already making a lot of money, and like, so
I think with BMI Live and like when you're doing those kind of things, it's dependent upon how many people are actually registering that they played, I think, because then it's like you divide it among all those people. So if it's invite only, there's less people to divide it among, so that's probably why they pay more.
Right, yeah. But
I guess back to the like signing up as a publisher thing though, I don't think it matters if you're independent if you have that, but it is like a leveraging like a bargaining tool if you are in the process of like negotiating a publishing deal. Because like instead of having that 50-50 split of like you get your songwriting 50% and then they get their 50% publishing, it could be like you get 50% of the publishing in addition. So it's kind of like you get 75% total instead, or whatever numbers, but just to keep it simple, like splitting in half.
Right.
But I don't think it matters as an independent one. But also, I didn't know Sammy K had signed up as a publishing company until we had a friend that was like, hey, what's your PRO information? Like, I'm putting 3 songs that we wrote together on my album, and she put a publishing thing, And then I had to individually be like, hey, is that new? Or have I been just incorrectly putting in your information every single time that I put a song in that we've written together? She's like, no, I've always had it, but the money goes to the same place.
Yeah, I was going to say it all goes, because it's all like divided and you have to have like a total of 200% when you like put it all in. But it all goes to the same bank account, I assume. And it's all like tied to your personal.
Yeah. Because like, I have that math on here too. I don't know if it's like that for ASCAP, but I know BMI, they put it out at 200 to make the math easier. So like, I don't know, I guess it's just easier math, but like I put our example of our song Ghost that we wrote with Dallas, because it's like without a publisher, it would be split like 66.67% ish. There's the one that's 66.66% just to get it to 200.
I always like feel bad. I'm like, who doesn't?
Yeah, who gets the 0.01%? But Dallas has a publisher, so for Alex and I, we both would just get 66.67% each, and then Dallas has to split her share with a publisher, which I guess when there's only one publisher, it's easiest just to have that person do that split of the 66.66%. These are so many numbers. So then she gets 33.33%, and then her publisher gets the other one. So there's lots of math involved if you have a lot of co-writers, and then when there's publishers, it gets even more complicated number-wise of putting the splits.
Which is why it's good to just at least put it and register it all in, like, right after you finish the song, like, either kind of at your co-write. I know it's good practice to do this. I'm faulty of not doing this, though. But, like, because by the end, you're, like, all tired, and you're just like, okay, we wrote a song. But, like, I know it's good to, like, get the dates down, get a little contract of like, we can use this for whatever purposes, like whoever wants to record it, whoever does that, blah, blah, blah. And then also putting it straight into, I know there's some softwares of like notes app type things for songwriters that link up to your PROs, and you can just directly like put it in there as you're writing it. Because your PROs also don't require like lyric sheets or anything like that. It's just like you have to put the title and then co-writers and publishers. So it's easiest to just put it all in then, so that then it's not a question of anything later down the road. But I mean, in Nashville specifically too, it's all a very even split. Whereas in LA, they will break apart. Like, well, you wrote one line, so you get 1%.
Yeah. Nashville, it's pretty much just like an unspoken rule that everything is split evenly, unless negotiated otherwise.
And honestly, it makes life easy. It makes just everything nice and
less complicated.
This is really something that like is it really worth the complications of it? Like,
I don't think so.
Your song's either gonna do well or it isn't, and you're either gonna make money off of it or you're not. Like, period. Point blank. Like,
yeah. I just have one last thing with the songwriter performance royalty, and then let's get that up checked. So even if a songwriter's not involved with the recording of a song, they're getting these songwriter performance royalties. So Dolly Parton gets songwriting royalties for "I Will Always Love You," Whitney Houston version.
Right.
So that's just an example, but. That's that one. We should stop and get that fixed. So you're going to hear us say how we fixed the video, but you're not going to see it because my phone blasted 19 seconds and then it did it again. And there's zero reason why. So that's a me problem I get to look into at some point here. Okay. We're just going to go back and do it and hope that Alex's phone works for video. Sorry, video people. Sorry, Dad. He does videos, so. Number 4, artist performer royalties. Some countries pay a performance royalty to the artist. U.S. does not. And then we move on to number 5. I just was like, for the sake of like listing all of them, even if some don't apply, we'll just a little bit.
A little sprinkle.
Yeah. Number 5. Let's see if I can move this without the pop filter. Okay. Digital performance royalties, which are also known as non-interactive streaming royalties. And so they're the digital radio royalty that's generated whenever your song is played on an internet radio platform like Pandora, Sirius XM, satellite radio, cable TV channels, etc. So like non-interactive, you're not like picking what song comes next. It's just like a radio station. Is that
like your iHeart radios too?
I would think so. Okay. Yeah. It excludes Pandora. I'm really struggling.
You don't have to talk super fast.
Excludes Pandora, Premium, Spotify, and other traditional streaming platforms where you pick specific songs. And Sound Exchange is the collection society for the U.S. that collects and distributes those royalties. So that's another place you need to register your songs with in order to get paid for these royalties.
Oh, I don't think I have a Sound Exchange, actually.
Oh.
Do you?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, well, I know what I'm doing after this podcast.
Okay, number 6 is neighboring rights royalties, which is a broad category of royalties that includes song usage generated from other foreign countries, as well as rights adjacent to songwriting royalties in the eyes of the law, so like performing royalties rather than songwriting royalties, and each country handles these slightly differently. Received when music is performed and used in various forms of media. In the US, these are just the digital performance rights because it's the only type of neighboring right generated in the US by law. So the US just doesn't legally recognize these in the same way as the rest of the world. And so we don't have like a national society that is collecting these. Even from the parts of the world that do recognize their legal existence. So
the US is also like normally and maybe a lot of other, because it like has to follow with technology, and so like getting ahead of that is never possible. So it's like, and obviously we just have a much slower system of getting things passed and through, and like it took so long for us to get the MLC, so it's like,
yeah, that was like the first major update since the like 1975 Copyright Act.
Well, yeah. I was gonna say, like, when in the early 2000s when like Napster, like that started to like at least get on the conversation of like technology and how to go about it, because like it like took so long to even go from like, okay, radio and like CDs are one thing and that's how you get paid, and then when streaming came around and all that, there was like a whole nother like, oh my god, we don't even know how to. That's why like the whole like, how do you pay them, how is it fair, like it's such a controversial topic at the moment. Just to the Spotify. No. Sorry.
7 is sync royalties, which we did a lot of in the other episode, but it's generated when copyright music is paired or synced with visual media. So TV show, movie, all that stuff. And it's the sync license fees, which are fully negotiable one-time payments to the artist and songwriter with a custom rate for each. And those rates are dependent upon popularity of the song, production budget, clout of the artist, as well as how much of the song is used and in what context. So this is all stuff we kind of already said, I think, in the other episode.
I think the only thing we didn't really touch on was like the first and final. Oh, maybe we did, but like the first and final like songs of a movie are like your big songs, and those ones are gonna have a bigger budget than like the 2-second throwaway song where the guy just enters as a school.
Yeah, like, if it's like background music on a jukebox in a bar, it's not gonna be that big of a licensing fee versus like having the entire song used and it's like a major part of the plot in that scene or something.
The big commercial song, like the like you put on all the ads and the trailers, like, or like Olivia Rodrigo's song at the end of the Hunger Games, like that's your big ending song. Like why a lot of like you like see those songs that you think are going to be in the scattered throughout, and then they're not, and they're just like the big end song, credit songs.
Or like I just watched Anything But You last night, and Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield is in there a lot, like several scenes, and I'm like, okay, that's pocket full.
Oh, that's pocket full assumption. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're right. Ugh.
But I'm like, I wonder what the sync is for that, because that was a big movie too, I think last year. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I imagine that was a high licensing fee for that song.
And if you know anything about college students, they are paying her bills. So.
what am I saying? Sync license fee paid to legally use musical composition is paid to the songwriter, and then the master recording license fee is paid to the owner of the master, so artist or label. So there's like different, or those two ones, I guess. And then they also pay the songwriting performance royalties, which I'm pretty sure we said before. This example of the Friends theme song got like an estimated $5,000 per episode for the sync license fee part, but then whenever it airs, even like the reruns and all that, that gets a performance royalty as well. So you get the ongoing of that royalty in addition to the one-time fee of the sync license. And then the last one is print music royalties, which is more common for like classical and film composers. And so
like
when
your
you
sheet music, and why you
put
can't
your sheet
just
music,
like find sheet music online, and like you're like, why do I have to pay for it? Or like, why can I not take like this musical score and like make photocopies of it out of like, why you have to have like actual booklets and stuff, is because they pay per booklet, because every time it gets printed it has to be paid for. Technically,
I was a department aide for the orchestra in high school.
When you're on a budget in school because they don't pay schools enough. So
yeah,
we can talk about that another time.
There's literally like on the chalkboard, people could write their name and what they needed a copy of, and then as the department aide, it was my job to print the copies. So, whoops. But they're often paid to copyright holder based on the number of copies made of the printed piece, which makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, that's more of a classical composer type thing, film theater. Composer, musical theater. When you're in
choir and you get your sheet musics and stuff.
But yeah. And then I just have a little summary about collecting royalties. So if you're an artist and a songwriter, you get your royalties from these 4 places. So distributor, PRO, MLC, Sound Exchange. And so obviously distributor, you're going to sign up when you're releasing music. That's how you release said music, but make sure you're registering with those other 3 in order to get those royalties.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that between BMI and like my DistroKid, that DistroKid would grab all the other ones, because I know at least some of them try to like offer more like I know. I
think DistroKid technically offers like a publishing thing.
Because I was going to say DistroKid technically will keep track of any time it's played on like iHeartRadios or like Pandora or anything like that. So I kind of just assumed that it was like Sound Exchange in that sense of like gathering everything for you. And it will distribute out like your cuts to like different songwriters and stuff, and it'll take all of like if you wrote it with other people and that kind of stuff too. So
I can't find without logging out. I think it'd have to be logged out for. I'm pretty sure I've seen like ads about publishing though, for if not DistroKid, it was like TuneCore or CD Baby.
Yeah, and that's why when we get into like we can do that at the other episode.
Yeah, we could do that. I'm just like,
Katie just wants to know now.
It's like I need to know now. There's like a Legacy Pro publishing for CD Baby,
I
things
know
like that.
There's a Legacy in DistroKid too, so
yeah. That's for another day.
Yeah, we can do that another day.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully, if you're not signed up with one of these places, now you know to do so in order to get your royalties.
It's money. I mean, and you can say it's still money that you're investing back into yourself, and it's still something that you can stand there and say like, I still am obviously doing something, because and it's it's just nice to see like, oh wow, I got one play in Franklin, Tennessee on Tuesday because it was on Apple. And it's just, you're still making that impact. You're still, and why would you just want to let? Because I mean, if you and I counted up, every quarter that BMI sends it out.
Do we want?
No.
Okay.
We'd still be
making BMI just updated their portal though to like actually look.
It looks very
current. Because it was kind of stuck in like early 2000s for a while. But there's like cool, I guess look into your own, but there's like bar graphs and things now.
And that's just for like 2 people that are like barely cutting it on the platform.
The royalty dashboard is new. That's what it is.
We're still making enough to like count it as retribution for us, you know?
Right. Yeah, so now the new thing with Be My is a royalty dashboard, and it will show like your overview and like give little more details like per song, and there's like a 3-year earnings trends and things like that, and like comparing your year-to-date earnings and comparing it to like previous year-to-date earnings and stuff. So
yeah,
if you like stats and you're a nerd like that, like I am, then I don't know. I like looking at analytics and statistics.
But it shows
so
that like you're improving and you're putting yourself back into it.
yeah,
so.
Or it might encourage you to play out more so you can get more BMI live if it's not where it was last year.
Not even you, just making sure that you're writing with people that use this stuff actively to make the
encourage your
your
songwriters,
yeah,
your co-writers
your
to
co-writers.
Log it when they're playing writers rounds, because it adds up and it's money for them too. So
it's a win-win for both of you guys, and I think that's
it
why
doesn't
we all
take long
started
either.
doing it, and we were like, why have we not been doing this whole time? Or why do I still have friends that play out every single day and they don't do that for themselves? Like,
yeah.
So
yeah, that's all we have though. So
yeah,
we'll see you next week.
We will see you next time. By the time you guys hear this, content day will have been done.
Yes, so be on the lookout for some content
about that.
From that. Hopefully you saw, I'm sure we'll put on our story tomorrow as it's happening. We'll be posting a little bit of some stuff, so hopefully you saw that over the weekend. But yeah, you can follow us at the Music Lens Podcast on all the things if you're not, and you can see whatever we post of it after the fact. Please rate and review us, because that helps with algorithm, helps people find this podcast. And you can follow Alex at Alex Lager Music and myself at Katie Fee Music on all the things. Listen to our music on the platforms, get us some streaming royalties.
Get us that money.
Get us some fractions of pennies.
But I think
that's everything. So
we will see you guys next time.
Woohoo!